see them, there's some distance that has come between you guys for whatever reason. What's it like when you're around that person?
Awkward.
Awkward. That's the exact word that I was looking for. Awesome. So you guys have all experienced that, right? Like, I remember when I was a freshman in high school, I sat at a lunch table with some guys, and because I was afraid of girls, and true story. And so, like we had the same lunch the first semester, and then the next semester we didn't have the same classes, and like a couple months go by and they act like they don't know me. You know what I'm talking about? Or like it's awkward because you're like, oh hey, yeah, remember we used to eat cheeseburgers together? And they're like, yeah. You guys experienced that before? So a lot of times what happens in relationships on earth, like relationships we have with other people, there's either a hurt that happens, someone gets hurt in the relationships, or both parties get hurt in the relationships, and then distance comes in, and then you give it a little time, and then there's awkwardness within the relationship, right? Or another way is that there's a life event that happens, and the life event is something that is somewhat out of your control in the sense that like you move, or you change class schedules like I just talked about, or a myriad of reasons. You guys understand what I'm saying? Like you're just not around that person anymore, okay? I have a little formula. I don't even know if this is a formula. Someone from Highlands Latin School could probably tell me that I'm wrong, but because they're really smart there. Highlands Latin School, really smart school, okay? I got you. Distance plus, I might spell wrong. Just for all those bad spellers out there, spelling's not an indication of intelligence. It's at least what my mom tells me. Okay? Distance plus insecurity squared equals, came up with this my own self, so don't quote it, awkwardness. Okay? Distance plus insecurity squared equals awkwardness. Kind of like E equals MC squared, right? Same. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thank you for shaking your head. That makes me feel better. So what I'm talking about is we're just going to use an example. I brought this board in to give an example. We'll come back to that. So we've all experienced these relationships that we've had with people, and sometimes what happens is, whether it's because we've been hurt by them or whether just things changed and we're not around them anymore, we bring that same mindset into our relationship with Jesus. So when there's distance within our relationship with Jesus, oftentimes, at least this is true for me, it has been true for me, I think I've got to because there's distance, it's like awkward. So I'm like, I kind of like come back to God kind of like this. Or I think that I have to prove myself or work myself up and into his good graces. Like if you hurt your friend, right? Have you guys ever sucked up to your friend to get back in their good graces? That's ever happened to you before? Yeah? Right? What does that mean? That means I'm gonna be like, oh man, Josiah, I'm sorry I made fun of you, but you're my best friend. You're my best good friend. And do you need anything? Can I help you? That's what it means. Does that make sense? I'm gonna do things for you. I'm gonna actually love you, probably. But honestly, it's selfish love because I'm loving you because I want you to like me. That's another story. Anyway, a lot of times we bring these relationships and the way this relationship, these earthly relationships, into how we see God. And so God, I have two lines here. This is God, okay? This is not perfect. God, It's not a perfect line, okay? But we're just going to pretend it is. We're going to pretend it's a super straight line. God, one thing about God is consistent. His character doesn't change. So therefore, because he's consistent, his opinions of you do not change, regardless of what you do. Okay? Does that make sense? So like he is constant. The Bible says, Micah 3:6 says, God says of himself, "For I am the Lord, I do not change." Psalm 139:17 says, "How precious are or David saying, how precious are your thoughts about me, O God, they cannot be numbered." So God's thoughts about you are constant. They don't change. Now our relationship, so this is God up here, okay? We, because of Jesus, have access to relationship with God. And I want to show that by another line, okay? And the Bible says that as we draw near to God, that he draws near to us. Okay, so we have the ability at any time, at any second of the day, we have access to God. The unchanging God. Not because we earned it, but because we simply surrender to Jesus. Now, oftentimes what our relationship looks like, at least for my relationship has looked like this, is I have nearness with God, right? Jesus bought that for me. But what I see is distance. Okay? What I see in my walk with Jesus, have you guys ever experienced that? Like you have seasons, squeaky seasons, right? You have seasons where you're distant, and then you have seasons where you come back to and you're like, why was I ever down here? Like this is so good. But when we're down here, oftentimes what happens is awkwardness. We feel awkward when we want to approach Jesus because we know how far we've slid. Does that make sense? So there's distance within our relationships. And because of these outside things, these outside relationships, like person-to-person relationships, we bring that into our relationship. Okay? Making sense? Yes, that makes sense. Thank you. But what we have to remember is this, that I've already said, God does not change. His opinions of you do not change. And guess what? Newsflash, God likes spending time with you. Like, God doesn't have to love you. Like, there's people in your life that have to love you because you're theirs, right? God likes spending time with you. He likes to hear you talk. He likes you. He enjoys you. You bring him great joy. And that is encouraging to know when we're distant from the Lord and when we're close to the Lord. And there's some reasons that I want to list real quick about why distance comes in. Okay? Here, there's a few reasons. One of those reasons is pride. We think, can you turn my mic up just a little bit? I'm gonna hold it down here. We think that we can do this on our own. And so pride comes in, like, I don't really need to spend time with Jesus. Like, I'm just a kid. I'm 14 years old. I'm 12 years old. Like, that's for grown-ups. That's for after I screw up my life and then I need Jesus. Like, that's pride. A fool thinks that way. A fool thinks that he can go along in life doing as he pleases and is a God unto himself. That is pride. Okay? The second reason is idolatry. We just got done with a fast last Wednesday, or some of you might have done it, but a fast of something that maybe you had put in a position that the Lord was like, hey, I want to have that place in your heart. And so oftentimes what happens is we start serving the different idols. I don't know what those idols are in your life, but those idols take the place of God in our life. So there's pride, there's idols that we have. There's also unconfessed sin. We've talked about confession of sin. And 1 John 1:9 says, if we confess our sin, he is faithful and just to forgive us of our sin and cleanse us of unrighteousness. Okay? And so there's something in my life that I have not confessed, and that brings shame and condemnation because I'm walking in this sin, or I've done it, and the Lord's like, hey, confess it. Confess it. And I promise you, when you confess your sin, we've heard testimony about this. We heard testimonies about when people have confessed their sin and the freedom that comes, and the fear that was there before is released because I confess my sin and I follow the Lord in his path. And like, is that not just confessing it to you, God, but also to the person you want me to confess this to? Okay? So we've got pride, we've got idolatry, we've got unconfessed sin, and we've got good deeds. Okay? These are some of the reasons, okay, that distance comes in. Good deeds. You're like, why? They're good. A lot of times, what we can do is we can put serving God in place of being with God. So we can serve, our life is filled with service and doing these things and checking these boxes and doing this stuff, and it's the void of relationship with God. And I will tell you this, you are doing the people you're serving a disservice if you're serving out of yourself. Because we don't need you, we need him. And we need him through you. So does that make sense? So like, I get filled up, and then I can overflow to you. Because you don't need me, you need him. All right? So a lot of you probably serve weekly. What are you serving? Like, that's a great question. I don't know. I'm not saying that necessarily that you're serving out of self, but that is something that you need to take to the Lord and go, Lord, like, I want them to have you. Like, I'm doing this because I love you. And a lot of times they're out of good motivation, but they're void of relationship. Okay? And then sometimes we feel distance. Those are 4 ways. There's more ways, but I want to just do a little caveat here, a little side thing. Sometimes you're feeling distance, and that's on purpose, because it's got nothing to do with these things over here, and it's called the wilderness. And the Lord has you in a season where you assume it's a distant thing, but it's not that. He's actually growing you. And he's developing trust and faith and hope inside of you. And those seasons can feel dry. And they can feel distant. But we must know that is where the Lord is doing his work. And so I don't want you to go, oh, well, I'm just in the wilderness season. That's kind of like a, okay, yeah, sure. I'm not gonna go through these things here. I'm just gonna say it's in the wilderness. Like, this is a prompt for our quiet time now. Okay? So as we enter into this quiet time, maybe you're feeling close with the Lord, like you're sensing his nearness and you're walking with him, and that's awesome. But when I prayed for you, God, I felt like, and I know that there's some people in here that feel distant from the Lord. And I want you to know your Father loves you. Your Father is like, come to me. Like, come to me. I love you. Like, I like spending time with you. Like, be with me. And so as we kind of enter, let's spread out a little bit, if we can. As I kind of finish up, spread out, act like everybody's got the stomach virus and you don't want to be near them. Okay? That means nobody sits next to each other.